Welcome back, everybody. For this week's episode, we are going over UFC 295 in Madison Square Garden, and we have Heavyweight Championship Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic. Now, let me stop. I wish, nonetheless, UFC 295, November 11th at MSG, we have a light heavyweight title fight, and that's against Yuri Procházka versus Alex Pereira. Obviously, this was the co-main event. Jon Jones got hurt. They moved up to the main event slot and they added another treat for us on this card. But let's go over this main event. Obviously, you know, Yuri Procházka hasn't been in the octagon since 2022 when he won his light heavyweight title against Glover Teixeira. I mean, that fight was an absolute war between the both legends. And obviously, just at the end, in the fifth and final round, Yuri pulled and just took out Glover at the end with a rear naked choke. Obviously, he's been on an absolute tear, and he's a former light heavyweight champion in a completely other division and tournament, which was Risen in Japan. So obviously, he's a double champ in two different promotions. Alex Pereira, also an extremely decorated fighter, is fighting. Obviously, not was he just a middleweight champion, but obviously now he moved up into a much more comfortable weight class at light heavyweight. And honestly, I have huge respect for him. I mean, he only fights the best, Pereira, and he has a very minimal mixed martial arts career. He is literally learning on the go. But obviously his striking is some of the best, and he has a wicked left hook with insane knockout power, and the dude is just made like out of granite. His obviously his first fight at light heavyweight against Jan Blachowicz, which is insane. You know, Jan Blachowicz is a huge light heavyweight. Everyone knows the Polish power puts people out. And the fact that Pereira was able to come in on his first fight at his new weight class and pick up at least a decision over a championship, contender like Jan Blachowicz, that's huge. Obviously, Pereira has had a fantastic run at Madison Square Garden where he knocked out Israel Adesanya. Well, welcome home. Back at MSG again with another main event. Alex Pereira, New York, loves you. Obviously, there will be a lot of fans out for the Brazilian, and obviously, a lot of people will be rooting for Procházka. How do I see this fight going? I want to say that I see Alex Pereira having that New York run. I do believe that, Yuri has been stationary for some time, having a gruesome injury that he had to recover from. But I think Pereira's hot right now, and it's his time. And Yuri has this wild style, and he likes to stand up, and he has this karate style. I just honestly believe that Pereira's elite level of kickboxing is going to catch up on him. Yuri's going to get caught, and this is going to be a show shocker at MSG. I mean, these two are big boys, and obviously Pereira can get knocked out by Yuri. Don't get me wrong, Yuri is a beast, but I just have a feeling that Pereira is going to have his hand raised that night, and it's going to be by a spectacular finish at the Garden. The co-main event is something that we got as a treat because we lost the heavyweight title with Jon Jones and Stipe, and we got Sergei Pavlovich going against Tom Aspinall. And that's an insane fight on its own. I mean, it could have been a main event on its own because Pavlovich is an absolute beast. I mean, he's 18-1. He's 31 years old. He's in his absolute prime. He's on a 6-fight win streak with knockouts. I mean, the last fighter that I know that had that was Chuck Liddell. I mean, the dude is on an absolute. He's breaking records, and he is just going through people straight first round. I mean, it's hard to get this guy to the second round because of his knockout power. Once he touches you, you are going to sleep. I mean, took out Curtis Blades, Tai Tuivasa, Derek Lewis. I mean, the only loss that we've seen by Pavlovich is when Alistair Overeem put him out, and that was one of his beginning fights in the UFC. Thus far, he's been on an absolute tear. His opponent, Aspinall, also came off a good win against Marcin Tybura, but obviously he suffered that leg injury when he fought Curtis Blades. But prior to that, he was on a 5-fight win streak. And I mean, I like Aspinall. I think he's super versatile. He moves quick. He's a very intelligent fighter, good wrestling, and he has a lot of power. How do I see this fight going between these two heavyweights? As long as Tom Aspinall can get Pavlovich into the second round, I think this is going to be an absolute barn burner. The problem is no one has really seen Pavlovich in deep water. And the fact that this is going to be a 5-round fight because they are fighting for an interim heavyweight title, that is going to be the key. The stamina. I truly believe Aspinall can fight for the 5 rounds. I don't see Pavlovich's stamina holding up to a long, enduring, gruesome fight. So as long as Aspinall can make this fight dirty and get this fight onto the ground, he has absolute every chance to take out Pavlovich. I know what this people are going to say. He's too strong. He's going to push him against the wall, and he's just going to knock him out and beat him up and drop him. Yes, that's usually Pavlovich's style. I do believe Aspinall has a very good wrestling game. He'll be able to get Pavlovich to the ground and possibly even submit him in the later rounds. The main thing is for him to stay calm, not to rush, not to make any mistakes. Keep Pavlovich away from the center, and he has to keep his back away from the cage. He cannot be like fighting off his back feet. Then Aspinall is absolutely going down. One of the next sickest fights that I'm so excited for, it's obviously Long Island native Matt Frevola, the steamroller, and he's going against a really big up-and-coming prospect in the lightweight division, and that's Benoit Saint Denis, obviously nicknamed God of War. I mean, we got to interview Matt prior to this fight, and Matt was saying, like, for him, it's not so much about the rankings, it's about he wants fights that excite him. And he's saying that the Frenchman excites him. It's a fight everybody wants to see. It's a matchmaker's dream. Both guys in their prime going head to head on the biggest stage in the world, and that's at Madison Square Garden. Obviously, when the UFC comes to New York, it's the biggest thing in town. I mean, it is the dopest event on Saturday night. You have to be at the Garden for UFC. When it comes to New York, it's once a year. It's always in November, and we love it. It's like that in-between weather where it's too cold and we're in the fall. It's like that perfect hoodie weather. So it's awesome. Obviously, Frevola, a ranked fighter at 14, is on a 3-fight knockout win streak, going against Benoit, who's also on a 4-fight win streak. I mean, these guys are meeting head to head. How do I see this fight going? This fight, like I said, Matt every time goes into his fights as the underdog. There's nothing better than putting a chip on Fravola's shoulder because he always delivers. He has the power, amazing striking, good wrestling, and a grit and a super high IQ. He trains with some of the best people in the world. I mean, this guy is definitely most slept on. Benoit, great fighter, but I cannot wait to see Fravola's hand raised. I mean, that arena is going to be slammed, and Frevola is a true New Yorker. Every time he goes into the Garden, he delivers. So there's a no-brainer for me that Frevola is going all the way that night. The next fight I want to bring up is Diego Lopes versus Pat Sabatini at featherweight. Obviously, Diego Lopes, his fight that we seen him in, he took on short notice against Movsar Ivolov, who's literally an undefeated featherweight, who's literally scratching at a title shot, 1 or 2 fights away, easily can have a title shot opportunity. He took him all the way to decision, and he put Movsar in some really, really dangerous, positions that I thought possibly he could have finished him in. But obviously had a nice comeback win against Gavin Tucker, and now he's going against the ultra-talented Pat Sabatini. Pat Sabatini also was on a 4-fight win streak prior. Then he had a tough loss to Damon Jackson. And his last matchup against Lucas Almeida, he came up big and came up strong. So I think this is a really, really good fight at featherweight. Both guys are super talented. I mean, obviously, Diego Lopes, the fact that he was able to go 15 minutes with Movsar makes this fight extremely exciting. How do I see this fight going? I see this fight going Diego Lopez type of jiu-jitsu against Pat Sabatini. I think it's a nightmare in the making because the last time Pat Sabatini fought a super dangerous jiu-jitsu guy, he broke his arm in CFFC against James. And Diego Lopez is a wicked Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. So I know that the matchmakers are saying, hey, I know you had a really tough, injury against a black belt, but we're going to give you an even more dangerous black belt for you to make a comeback on your next fight. So I'm worried for Sabatini, and I got Diego Lopez going for that night. No introduction for this next fight. This is our good friend Nazim, the Black Wolf Sadikov, and he's going against Vyacheslav Borslev. Obviously, Nas has been on an absolute tear, and he's one of the most exciting prospects on the UFC lightweight roster. I mean, if you watched him during his Dana White's Contender Series, he was an absolute fantastic, knocking out, finishing his opponent with his incredible striking and his amazing takedown defense. His UFC debut against Evan Elder, you obviously saw it was a performance of the night between both fighters. And Nas getting his bonus on his UFC debut. Next match, they gave him Terrence McKinney. Obviously, he made beautiful work with one of the wickedest rear naked chokes that I've ever seen in the UFC, which was a quick finish after that win. Obviously, Nas called his shot at MSG, and Dana White and the matchmakers delivered. His opponent, of course, Vyacheslav, is also a very dangerous striker and also a very exciting fighter. Obviously, the matchmakers make no mistake. These two, big possibility, if not a huge possibility, this will be the fight of the night. Vyacheslav, also a very tough striker and brawler, has had a nice run at the UFC. He kind of got into a little slump on a 2-fight losing streak, but he was able to redeem himself in his last win against Masha State. And that's why the matchmakers put these two together on Saturday night. Obviously, we're going to be rocking with Brooklyn absolutely all the way with Sadikov. I mean, I believe Sadikov will finish this fight under 2.5. Keep in mind, fight is going to be the prelims, so you do not want to miss this. This is going to be a little bit earlier, so definitely come out and definitely come support Brooklyn Zone. And one of the beginning fights in the prelim is also Dennis Bazookia versus Jamal Emmers. And obviously, Dennis Bazookia, Nazim, and Steamroller are all from the same camp, all representing Long Island Law MMA. So this is obviously a very nice thing for New York City. A lot of local guys are showing out on this card. Bazookia had to pick a fight on 10 days' notice against Sean Woodson and went the distance with him. Very happy that the UFC was able to give him a quick turnaround, give him another fight in his hometown against Jamal Emmers. Emmers obviously is also coming off a loss against Jack Jenkins, and he's had a win against obviously the big hype guy Hussein Ashkabov, who was like supposedly some crazy undefeated fighter, but literally got washed up by Emmers. So obviously UFC caliber fighters are different level, compared to the rest of the world. I mean, these guys are the best of the best, even though you might not know their names. Anyone who fights in the UFC, super dangerous. I see Dennis Bazookia more than well prepared for this match, and he is going to make a huge, huge statement come Saturday night. I'm telling you, Bazookia by knockout. It's going to be a world shocker. This is going to be the opening fight of the match. Guys, you have to tune in. This will be the first fight of the night. Bazookia versus Emmers. You don't want to miss it. Guys, remember, if you always want to support us, please leave a like, follow, and subscribe on all social media platforms. Obviously, you see the merchandise. We have exclusive Nazim, the Black Wolf Sadikov hats and merchandise, plus many more. NotoriousPulls.com. Your host, Mitch. We'll see you soon.